Okay. It is 6 p.m. We will call the August 10th County Board meeting to order. At this time, we will stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Roll call shows all supervisors.
Okay. Members of the wishing third list. You got the sheet there. I'm just okay. This time I was seeking a motion to approve the agenda.
Can I seek out a point of information before we approve the agenda?
I don't.
I just want to be certain that when we approve the agenda and the consent agenda, the way that it is structured, that we are able to do the 2/3 vote based on your action item printout and memo regarding the stormwater agreement dated August 5th.
Okay, the approval of the agendas and anything that's in the consent agenda, when we get to that, you can pull that out separately. But
Okay.
Otherwise, we're approving what we're looking at.
Okay.
Okay? So I would seek a motion to approve.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Point of order.
Yes, go ahead.
To the corporate council. This stormwater agreement is listed under number 1 under business items. So it's on the agenda, but when you pull it up, there's a message from the county board chair that says, in order for us to consider this item, it has to be approved by the board and placed on the agenda.
Yeah, that's,
So a motion to amend the agenda is in order now, not when you do the consent agenda.
okay. That's a great question, and actually, I can provide some clarity to that, I think. That is actually not correct, the way it was stated in the memo.
Right.
It is actually, the ordinance requires a 2/3 vote of the members present to suspend the rules before the resolution that is already, first, the board chair has the authority whether to place it on the agenda or not. He's already made that decision. It's on the agenda. So the 2/3 vote is with regards to whether or not it can be discussed and voted on. So it is on the agenda. It's incorrect in the memo that the 2/3 vote is to determine whether it's on the agenda or not.
Okay, so that will happen when we get to business item.
That's correct.
It does not have to take place now.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion passes. Members of the public wishing to be heard. First on the list is Jim Hammett, and Jim, you will have 5 minutes if you want to come up to the microphone here and speak. Yep, right there.
I'm showing up here regarding the apparent lack of a noise ordinance for Chippewa County. We've had some problems where I live on Lake Holcomb, and I'll make a few points here. On weekends and holidays, when the parks and everything and the islands fill up with people, they come in by the residential areas and anchor their boats, and there is a lot of loud music on onboard boat stereos and young children screaming and hollering And a few nights, people are lighting off loud explosive fireworks. This doesn't happen too often, but occasionally it goes on almost until midnight. And we've had them come around with large barking dogs. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that there seems to be the possibility of appearance of so-called blue-green algae and a motivating factor for many people to purchase and install aerators. We have 9 within a half-mile radius of our property. The nearest to our home is approximately 200 feet from our front porch. And it keeps us, quote, awash in the sound of rushing water. And another item, after a rumored cost, I haven't checked this out actually, but a rumored cost of $1,200 to $1,500 per aerator. I was wondering who profits from this. And there doesn't seem to be any apparent oversight as to use installation or anything like that. And we checked it out, but we couldn't find any documented noise ordinance for Chippewa County. There's a very comprehensive one for the city of Chippewa Falls, but I would like the committee to take this under discussion and perhaps get something in place that can be enforced so that those of us who enjoy the quiet of our retirement home can enjoy it a little more.
Thank you. Dave Staber?
Good evening again. Stormwater ordinance, I know is on your agenda tonight. I would encourage you to do the 2/3 majority vote needed to act on this tonight. This has been going on since February. And in my opinion, it never should have gone this far. It should have been acted upon with a new agreement drafted for the townships that are involved in this and the village of Lake Hallie. There is an agreement now that all 4 of the participating parties have agreed on, signed. We would like to get this done, and to delay this to go back to committee and come back to another vote in September, we're losing another month on this. All of these inspections for the stormwater retention ponds have to be done during the summer months and non-rain events. So we're limiting our time that we have to do this. And we need to know whether it's going to be a county participation or if it's going to be just the townships. So this is something that can't be delayed anymore. It needs to be done tonight. And I ask you to follow through on the 2/3 vote and get this done. Thank you.
Okay. Carolyn Kaiser?
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Kaiser, residing in the town of Wheaton. And I come before you tonight to ask you to support the ordinance and to repeal and recreate the animal waste ordinance identified as ordinance number 03-21. This issue has literally been in discussion both on the public comment side and as an agenda item in the Land Conservation and Forest Management Committee for an extended period of time. To be at this juncture is a positive step. It gives direction for persons wishing to farm with straightforward criteria. It's a goal to protect groundwater, which in turn protects citizens, animals, and land quality. 2 people, both with longstanding and current farming experience, gave testimony at the public hearing in support of said ordinance, and the ordinance passed unanimously out of the Land Conservation Committee. The ordinance speaks of the permits needed, spells out processes, and where to go for resources. That's a start. When I say start, I say that because people living near CAFOs have voiced concerns. Some farmers wish the counties had more local enforcement. Some concerns are voiced quietly as to not start a family feud. Some are fearful of repercussions. And many voiced concerns over the fact that self-regulation is the fox watching the hen house. In the end, I would hope that we are on the same page as a community in all wanting clean water for drinking, fishing, plants, and animals. To clarify, one point of frequent disinformation is that when drilling a new well or during reconstruction of a well, such as lining or screen replacement or physical conditioning, NR 812-46 is clear that bacteria and nitrate samples will be collected and analyzed. This has been a law since 2014. You may remember that in 2015, the Wisconsin legislators stripped the Wisconsin DNR of scientists. There was immediate pushback from some conservation groups, but no avail. Many decisions were then made by subjective methods instead of scientific. Due to policy and law changes, some of the statutes and administrative codes now read, they may or they can, not they shall or they will. By 2018, the study showed the decay of clean water and increase in pollutants. And currently, the American Society of Civil Engineers has given Wisconsin wastewater a C-. We need to work together for a more positive future. So at the county level, I would like to see, 1, this ordinance passed, and 2, as the ordinance has already been dissected for such an extended time frame, positive testimony at the public hearing, and full support of the committee, I would ask that you waive the second reading and finalize this tonight. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Dennis?
I'm Dennis Firstnow, Town Chairman of Eagle Point, and I'm basically to say the same big comments that Dave Staber did about the stormwater agreement. On behalf of the Eagle Point Town Board, I want to thank the County Board for bringing this to the table again. Our Town Board met on August 2nd in a special session just to address this issue alone, and we voted unanimously to support and to approve the agreement. And so we strongly encourage the County Board to also approve this tonight. We feel it's in the best interest of both the county and the municipality. So we appreciate your support of this agreement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
Gary Spildy, President of Village of Lake Hallie, and I would like to ask for your support on the stormwater agreement. I concur with what David and Dennis have said about it. I wish it hadn't gone this far. I wish we'd have been informed earlier of what was happened back in February and March. But nonetheless, there's an agreement before you tonight, and I ask for your support to pass it. Thank you.
All right. Move on to the consent agenda. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to reports and county administrator review and update. Well, the audit report is, oh, okay. I was wondering if you were going to introduce them, Randy. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. As he said, I am here tonight to present the county audit report for 2020. I'm April Anderson from CLA. And what we go over here that most of you are probably familiar with from prior years is called the audit or the executive audit summary. And so it's a high-level overview of what is in the audit report. The audit report is over 100 pages long, so we like to pull out the key pieces of information that we feel are necessary for you to know. So we will start right there where we're at, on page number 1. And in the audit opinion section, you'll see that we issued an unmodified audit opinion. And so that is the highest audit opinion that you can receive, and that's considered a clean audit opinion. So that means the financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and they follow the rules, regulations, and standards that you need to follow as a governmental entity. The next section that you'll see there is the internal control section. So as we do go through the audit, we are required to note and communicate to you any deficiencies or weaknesses that we do find in internal controls. And so here you will see that we do report one finding, significant deficiency for limited segregation of duties. And so this is something that you've had in the past. It's been ongoing and probably will continue just due to the size and the makeup of the staff that you have working through the financial information. And so what this means is that in the different processes that you have, making journal entries, receipting money, disbursements, payroll, not one person should have access to the different parts of that process. They shouldn't be able to initiate it, reconcile it, and then do the reporting on it. And again, just due to the size and the makeup of the staff that you have handling these different processes, there are just some instances where overall you have good processes and controls in place, but there are some instances where some people do have some crossover of those different steps in the process. And so again, the key here is that the controls that you do have in place, or try to put mitigating controls in place, so to try to mitigate and prevent error or fraud as much as possible. And so reviews of certain things by other people in the process or that type of thing is key here. So we're not overly concerned about it. It's not a material weakness, which is considered a more severe deficiency, or controlled error, but a significant deficiency because it does exist. And then the very last part on this page is the compliance and internal controls over compliance. So due to the funding that you do receive from the state and the federal government, we not only do the financial statement or audit the financial statements, we also do a compliance audit of that funding that you receive. And so within that, we don't have any errors or compliance issues that we have noted through that testing. So then we'll actually jump down a few pages here. So this is the required communication to you as the governing board, but it's kind of just more detailed of what I summarized at a high level on that first page. So we'll go through down to page 8. It is where we start with some of the numbers. Yes, right there. Yeah, it did get tiny. So here is the general fund that we'll start off with. So this is the county's main operating fund. And what we show here are 4 years of information so that you can kind of see historical trends and things like that. And so I won't hit on every line here. A lot of the beginning part is your assets and then your liabilities. So the balance sheet accounts do vary year to year, usually just due to timing of things at the end of the year. Maybe you have more payables or receivables, and so that affects your cash balance as well from year to year. So I will just hit on some of the ones that maybe changed quite a bit from 2019 to 2020. And so when in the asset section, that top section, there is due from other funds, two lines from the bottom of that section. Yep. And so you'll see that changed. You'll see in 18 it was up to 3 million, 19 it was down again, and then now it's up again. And that is just kind of cash flow timing of things in the consortium that you have. and that their funding doesn't come in till after they've had the expenses, they paid those out, but they don't get a lot of that funding in from the state until after year end. And so, so the general fund somewhat kind of loans that cash over, or loans it to them at the end of the year. And so that's very common, with that type of activity. And as I said, in 18, you had kind of a similar situation. So, it can ebb and flow throughout time there.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do you wish us to ask questions when the page is up or at the end?
At the end?
Okay, we'll have to come back to this page then, Tracy. Okay?
Okay. And then what we ultimately get down to, your assets less your liabilities, is your fund balance then. And so that's kind of what's accumulated over time, or it may have been called the reserve in the past. And so the fund balance, you'll see there, did increase $241,000 from during 2020. And that was a little bit of, your revenues were actually under budget a little bit, mostly due to the change in the home health program. And then, but your expenses were under budget too. And that occurred because of the home health program as well, and changes there, and then some continuing appropriations. And so that's why you were able to add $241,000 to your fund balance. But you will see in that section that there's a breakdown of fund balance. So even though your overall fund balance is the $25.8 million, there's different categories there, and it's broken down into the two top line items are non-spendable. So even though you have assets up above for delinquent taxes receivable, it's not considered really available for you to spend at the time. It's not in a form like available cash to spend. So we take that out of that available fund balance because it's not really there and available for you. Then you'll see the assigned amount of the $12 million. And what that relates to is set aside amounts, or kind of the appropriations or the carryovers that you have approved already usage for. So again, you've kind of allotted that funding for certain purposes, so we don't consider that exactly available or unassigned at the end of the year. And some of the amounts that you have within that $12 million, and if you want to see the whole detail, there's quite a list. It's on page 47 in the full audit report. But some of the bigger amounts is $1.1 million for security plan, $1.6 million for employee health program. You have $3.3 million for the Sheriff's Department equipment and power. And the reason that the assigned fund balance went down from 19 to 20 is that that amount for the Sheriff's Department and equipment tower carryover actually decreased from $4 million in 2019 to about $3.3 million in 2020. And then the last bigger amount that you have there is unfunded benefits liability of $1.4 million. So those are some of the bigger amounts, but as I said, there's quite a few line items that you have amounts set aside for certain purposes to be used in the future. And so they're carrying over, you've budgeted for them in the past, they haven't been spent, so you're carrying them over into future years to be used for that particular purpose. So then ultimately what you get down to there is the unassigned fund balance, and that is truly what's considered available to you at that $12.282 million. And what we look at there as far as somewhat of a benchmark of financial health is that unassigned balance, so what's available technically to your annual expenditures. And so that's that percentage line there, kind of towards the bottom. And you'll see that this year it's 37.1% for 2020, and you've been right around 35% for the last 4 years. And so the recommendation for that percentage and the county's policy is to have that at between 25 to 33%. And we work with many counties and governmental entities in Northwest Wisconsin and across the state And the counties that we do work with generally fall between 35 to 40% or so. So you're right in that range where we kind of expect you to be and where you have been. So we see that level as a pretty healthy fund balance there. So I guess one item I did want to point out here in the revenues, and I'll talk a little bit when I get to some of the other funds. But you will see the transfers in. I usually hit on this because you'll see 3.5 million coming in, and that includes 2.3 million that you've transferred from that county sales tax fund, which is an annual activity that you have happen where you get that funding in county sales tax, and then you move it over into the general fund to help alleviate a little bit of the tax levy burden. So then as we move to the next page, we hit on the rest of the funds that the county reports. And so this section number 2 is your special revenue funds. And what we show here, we don't show all the detail like we did for the general fund. We just show the ending fund balance for each one for the year. And so special revenue funds are considered kind of self-sustaining funds, and that it's for specific activities for a specific purpose with, certain revenues coming in to pay for those activities. And here, again, I won't hit on every line item, but I did want to go over the Human Services Fund because it's a bigger fund with a lot of activity that you have going through there. And so you'll see that it's relatively consistent to last year as far as the ending fund balance goes. This year in 2020, both expenses and revenues were greater than budget, but the net of that activity was actually a positive $237,000. But what occurred is there was a transfer back to the general fund to kind of leave that at that level amount of the $42,000. And at many counties, they actually zero that fund out each year. So whether it's over, expenses are over, or revenues are under, or over, there's just a transfer between the general fund and the human services fund. So we often see that at a pretty low balance. The next fund, which I did hit on a little bit talking about the general fund, was that county sales tax activity. Oh, just up a little bit, yeah. The county sales tax activity. And so here I just wanted to note, because you will see that that fund balance did increase quite a bit from 19 to 20. And so what we saw here was you had about 6.2 million of county sales tax revenue that came into this fund. And then generally it's a lot of that is transferred out. I already told you about the amount transferred to the general fund. And then 1.8 million was transferred to debt service to help pay for your principal and interest on debt for the year. And then there was 1.3 million transfer that was kind of budgeted to occur to the highway fund, but that did not have to happen to help with the highway activity in 2020. So you have that fund balance sitting there so that when the relevant activity does occur in the highway fund, that you can transfer that over then for that purpose. Or if you decide to reallocate that to a different purpose, you have it there in that fund balance in the county sales tax fund. Otherwise, I wasn't going to hit on any of the rest of them. Most of them are pretty similar from year to year, or sometimes if they have some grants coming in there, sometimes they will vary year to year, but otherwise they stay relatively consistent. So now I'll move down to the next item. Item number 3 is your capital projects funds. And so here, very common for these to change quite big from year to year because usually debt is issued for capital project purposes and then you spend it down. And so that's what you're seeing right here, where you've issued debt in past years, you issued debt this year in 2020, and so that amount is still sitting there to be spent down in 2021 and in future years. And then on item number 4, your debt service fund. And this is just for that purpose. You're levying or transferring funds into here to pay for your principal and interest on debt each year. And so generally we see this balance, fund balance, at close to zero or so, because you're only putting into this fund what you need to pay for your principal and interest. But you will see that you have had a balance in the past. So the net of everything is $832,000 at the end of 2020. And that was just kind of built up from a premium on a refunding from past years. So you have that available to pay for future debt principal and interest payments. During 2020, you made your required payments, which was $1.56 million for principal and about $300,000 in interest on debt. And so that's what flowed through this funding. The next item is the Farmland Development Fund. And so this is called an enterprise fund. It's accounting is a little different than the rest of the funds that we've seen. And again, I'm not going to hit on a lot of the fund or a lot of the lines here. Just kind of get down to that final line there, which is change in net position of a positive $715,000. So that relates both to some sale of land out in that area. And then there was also a transfer in of $500,000 from the general fund to be used for some of that development in the future. The next page with item number 6 is your internal service funds. And so there's 4 different activities or funds that are reported in this type of fund. And so you'll see your highway department here. And like the general fund, you have a lot of information here with your assets and your liabilities and your balance sheet. But I'm just going to kind of come down to the bottom line there where the change in net position is a positive $13,000. And so that was a result of you had some projects in there. You had some debt issued though, and that funding was brought in to offset that. And so a pretty even result for the year. What we do look at here, I know we looked at fund balance and in your unassigned fund balance for the general fund. Here, in this type of reporting, we look at what's called a current ratio. And so that is your current assets, so your kind of available cash, available receivables to your current liabilities and payables. And so if you look at your current assets, the $7 million, to your current liabilities of the $1.4 million, you want at least a 1-to-1 ratio, so how liquid you are. And so this calculates to 4.92. So obviously this fund is sitting well in that you have plenty of current assets to pay for your current liabilities. So that's a little bit of a benchmark we look at there in this type of fund reporting. And then the next one is your self-funded workers' comp. And so this, you'll see that the net position at the end of the year was $1 million, and it is your policy, or you can see that that's consistent for the past 2 years. So that's kind of the level that you've set that at, that you want that fund balance or the net position to be at. And so you were able to transfer out positive $718,000. So obviously good results there as far as being able to stay at that $1 million level that you wanted and to move some funding back into the general fund. And in this fund, you'll see that over the last few years, you've had, I guess the last negative claim year was 2014. So really positive results in that. The next one here is a self-funded liability insurance. And so this one has had some negative claim years in the past few years. And so you'll see here that the overall change in net position here is minus $63,000. So your expenditures exceeded your revenues by that $63,000. However, your fund, you still have a net position of the $291,000 there. So you do have available resources, and you continually, and I think you have continually the last few years just kind of seen where that is, where that level is. And then you can obviously, if you have to change your rates or change how things are transferred in there to cover the activity in here, then you can assess that. But you still have some available resources in this fund for this activity. And then the last one, enterprise or internal service fund that you report is for the flexible benefits fund. And so this one generally is close to a break even from year to year as far as the activity being paid out of here and then the funding coming in. So you'll see that you ended, very close to a break even situation as well here. And that's really, most internal service funds are kind of set up to be that way. It's just funding coming in to pay for that particular activity, to kind of serve the county in activities happening with the county. So that encompasses all the funds that you report in your financial statement. And so the last thing that we like to hit on here is just your overall long-term obligations that you have outstanding. And so what you'll see here is that your general obligation debt, you did issue some in 2020, $3 million. And so you'll see that went up. And what we look at here is that every county, municipality, school district in the state has a debt limit, a statutory debt limit, which is 5% of the equalized value of the whole county. And so the 10.16 million is 3.1% of your overall debt limit. And so that you're at a very good level there. The counties that we work with in Northwest Wisconsin generally range from about 0 to 20%. So you have debt capacity if you needed to issue more debt, but you're at a good level at that 3.1% that you're utilizing. And then the middle section there that you'll see is vested employee benefits. And so what this is, relates to the sick, vacation, comp type absences that your employees have earned at this point in time, but have not taken, and it will be paid out into the future. And so you'll see that it's about 2.7 million total there that is accumulated for those types of benefits. However, if you recall back to the general fund discussion that we had for your assignments that you have assigned for unfunded benefit liabilities about 1.4 million. So you do have some funds set aside to pay for these potential future costs when they do occur. So overall, you had positive results in your general fund, your main operating fund, and where that ended up, and then the rest of the funds generally saw, positive results or they stayed similar to prior years. So that is what I have generally gone over as far as the key pieces of information. I don't know if you want to open it up for questions.
Yes, and we will start with Supervisor Schmidt.
On the fourth line down on tax deeds owned by the county, the 2020 number is significantly different than the other 3 years. Why is that?
And that can just vary year to year depending on that type of activity. And so it just truly depends on, if they're still sitting out there, if they've been sold or, have gone back into the market and that sort of thing. And so I guess we would have to, if you wanted more of the actual details, we would, have to reach out to the treasurer's office and to talk to them more about the details. I guess I don't know if they have a different process in place or anything like that as far as looking at the activity more, but it can just kind of depend on what is on tax deed and then how it gets turned over and that sort of thing.
Any other questions from the board? Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Let me jump in here because I got to explain. Okay, we're going to do a quick little education thing on the button here. So if a person wants to speak, you would push the request to speak, and it'll put it in order as far as who is going to speak. So just wanted to refresh that new app for those who haven't had it before. Okay, do you want to explain this?
Or do you want
Okay.
to state the agenda?
Yeah. Okay, at this time, we'll move to the business items. And after consulting with corporate counsel, code 2.70A1 requires a committee to pass an item on and in order for it to be voted on. So at this time, then what we would do is we'd have to entertain a motion to suspend that rule before we could move on to the item.
If I could, can I just?
Yep, go ahead.
I thought I would give a little background as to why the rule, in my opinion, should be in place in this circumstance. If you all recall, there was a motion made and adopted at the July 13th County Board meeting, and that was to direct the county administrator and land conservation and forest management director to negotiate a new agreement to implement a joint stormwater agreement for the Chippewa Falls urban area and bring it to the August County Board meeting. As you can see, the matter is listed as a business item, and it's specifically as approved cooperative agreement to implement joint stormwater program for Chippewa Falls urban area. As was referred to in the county board chair's memo to the board, it referred to section 2-70A1 of the Code of Ordinances, which states that all resolutions shall be submitted to the appropriate committee, board, or commission for review and input prior to submission to the county board, unless the county board chair authorizes the placement of a resolution directly on the county board agenda. A 2/3 vote of the members present must vote to suspend the rules before the resolution placed on the agenda by the county board chair is discussed or voted on by the county board. And although the agenda item, there is no resolution accompanying it, and that is really based on what the specific language of the motion was that was adopted, was just to bring back the agreement. As a matter of practice, approval agreements has historically been accompanied by a resolution. And so given that matter of practice, it's my opinion that section 270A1 applies to this agenda item, and that a motion in 2/3 affirmative vote to suspend the rule, generally requiring that resolutions be submitted to the appropriate committee for review and input, should be followed before there's any discussion and vote taken by the body on the item. So that's a little background on how I fall on that. Any questions?
Okay, hearing none, then we will take care of this first matter, and we would, is there a motion to suspend the rules so that we can move on to the item?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, then we will call the vote. Those in favor of suspending, excuse me. Okay. Those in favor of suspending the rule would vote yes, and those who would be opposed would vote no. So at this time, vote. Yes.
9 yes, 6 abstain.
Okay, 2/3 was not met, so the resolution failed. Okay, business item number 2. We'll have the clerk read the resolution.
Resolution number 29-21, resolution to create a redistricting committee and technical support committee to develop a tentative redistricting plan for county board approval. Now therefore be it resolved that a redistricting committee is hereby created to work to develop a tentative redistricting plan consistent with the processes and timelines set out in the attached tentative redistricting process and timeline for 2021, and to present that tentative redistricting plan to the county board for approval. And be it further resolved that the following individuals are hereby appointed to serve on the redistricting committee: County Board Supervisors, Don Hauser, Town of Anson, Getz, and Lafayette; Ken Schmidt, Towns of Cooks Valley, Woodmore, Howard, and Eagle Point; Michelle Shipman, Towns of Lafayette and Halley; Glenn Sikorsky, Towns of Ruby, Estella, Arthur, and Colburn; Municipal Representatives: Henry Schockel, Town of Delmar and the City of Stanley; Ronnie Arts, Town of Birch Creek; Doug Olson, Town of Lake Holcomb; Bridget Givens, City of Chippewa Falls; Lisa Westman, Town of Estella; Wayne Miller, Town of Wheaton; Jim Jerabek, Town of Sampson. Be it further resolved that a technical support committee is hereby created to provide all necessary technical assistance to the redistricting committee to develop the tentative redistricting plan. And be it further resolved that the following individuals are hereby appointed to serve on the technical support committee: Randy Scholes, County Administrator; Tracy Bronis, Assistant to the County Administrator; Jackie Sadler, County Clerk; Doug Clary, Planning and Zoning Director; Dennis Falkenberg, GIS Coordinator; James Sherman, Deputy Corporation Counsel. Be it further resolved that the redistricting committee shall bring a tentative redistricting plan directly to the county board for approval in November 2021, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
That's the motion put on the floor. So at this time, is there a motion to approve the redistricting?
I make a motion we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded? Okay, any further discussion? Okay, go ahead.
As you guys know, I've talked about this several times. The timeframes that we're required to do and that we outlined in this procedure or in this resolution is going to be difficult, but obviously we have to get it done. WCA did work on a fix that did not make it through the governor's. The governor actually vetoed it, so we're still stuck with the deadline. The two committees, the chair will speak, I'm sure, on his recommendations for his committee. The technical committee is my staff, and the technical committee is the one that will do all the work after hearing what the redistricting committee wants to follow. So again, very tight timelines. We really need this to pass tonight, whatever you guys do, whatever changes you make, but I don't know what we'll do if it doesn't.
Okay, any further discussion? Then we will call the vote.
Yes, 1 abstain.
Jackie, that was
Oh, no. Sorry, on my bottom of my screen, they're backwards, sorry. 1 no.
1 no, okay.
14 yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, then we will move on to item number 3, Resolution 3021.
Resolution number 30-21, Resolution to direct Chippewa County staff to prepare a redistricting plan based on Chippewa County Board of Supervisors consisting of 21 county board supervisors. Now therefore be it resolved that the Chippewa County Board of Supervisors does hereby direct and authorize staff to prepare a supervisory redistricting plan based on a county board of supervisor size consisting of 21 county board supervisors. And be it further resolved that approval of this resolution is not the final official vote to increase the size of the county board from 15 to 21 county board supervisors, as that will occur when the redistricting plan is formally approved. And be it further resolved that any increase in the size of the county board shall be effective with the April 2022 County Board of Supervisors election forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Just the history on this, back in September 8th, 2020, Resolution 3120, the county board recommended looking at the 21 members to increase to 21. I talked last time about how difficult it would be to probably try and do that. After talking with Doug, really the concern is only doing one number. It'd be extremely difficult to do two numbers. So whatever number you guys decide on tonight, that's what we'll move forward with. But trying to bring forward multiple maps with the time frame we have is pretty much impossible. So we can do whatever number you want, but we really need that number, and that would be the purpose of the resolution tonight.
Any further discussion on the 21 board size?
Motion to amend.
Go ahead.
Make a motion, we amend the number and reduce it to 19 county board members instead of 21. Can I give a reasoning?
Is there,
Or it needs a second?
we need a second, and then we go into discussion. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Hauser.
Well, in the discussions I've had with other county board members and my constituents, the only justification for going to 21 members that I've heard is because some people are serving on too many committees. There's a different solution to that problem. If you think you're serving on too many committees, give them up. Going to 21 members merely makes this room a lot larger, and it makes our meetings a little longer. I just don't see the need to go to 21. I think 19 is a much easier number. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Oh, okay. Got it. We'll get the buttons.
As I think the only board member here who was on the board when we had 29 members, I don't see any issue with one being too many. At the time that we downsized, I thought 21 or 23 would be a more appropriate number. I think we need to get a few more board members to spread things out a little bit, and there's too many board members with too many time commitments, and I think we're missing a segment of society that would maybe serve on this board, but they don't have time because of the number of committee assignments. I guess I can say this pretty safely now, there's too much gray hair in this board. So I'd like to see a few younger people on, and the other thing is, when you get in the rural districts, these board districts got to be cut in size. It's too hard to campaign, it's too hard for people to know who they're voting for, because the districts are getting too big. And we got to do what we can to make those districts smaller and more manageable.
Okay. I see nobody else.
Number
one.
Oh, okay. So Supervisor Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to note that in the executive committee meeting we did, and it's actually a part of the attachment here, we took that survey. What year was that? That was just in July, right?
I think it was during that resolution. The same
Okay.
period.
And the number that we as a county board landed on was 1. I know, speaking for myself as a person that works full-time and has a family, There are, quite a few folks that don't serve because they do have a lot of commitments already, but they have the desire to serve. I think that if we did increase it to 21, more individuals would be, good quality individuals would be able to serve. So I still think 21 is probably the number. But again, it'll be interesting to see how the census marks out the different districts. So, thank you.
Supervisor Hauser.
My rationale is based on that survey where an equal number of people thought that 15 and 21 was okay or was appropriate, but the 19 sort of split the difference. So if you're looking to split that difference and make it equitable, the 19 seems like a compatible, compromise between the two numbers.
Okay. Supervisor Steele.
Yeah, I think it should be 21 for a multitude of factors. Number one, my district from east to west is over 25 miles. It's quite a district. It's kind of hard to get it wrong. So I think if we go to 21, it would help get more input from our constituents. Thank you.
Charlie?
Are we separating it according to this population size or acreage area? I mean, the larger, like talking about the exterior part of the city limits, are there going to be more representatives because of the area size, or is it the population that we're concerned about separating?
I can answer.
Yeah,
population.
go
ahead.
Yep. So you can do plus or minus
The
10.
matter of the distance and all that, it's probably not going to make that much difference for the rural people, more for the city people that we have more representatives. Is that right?
I would think that because of the population, I think we're around, 4,200 something per county board representative. So you're gonna have more in the city, but you're also, the rural area is the areas will shrink.
Small down.
Yeah, they'll shrink.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Pushing your button there, so go ahead.
Push this one, that'll help.
There we go.
Great button. The rural areas will shrink more because the population is more sparse. So they'll shrink a bigger geographical footprint than what the urban districts will. Because it's, according to state law, we have to have a same amount, reasonably, there's substantially the same number of people in all the districts or number of voters. So.
Any further discussion? All right. Okay. We get it first. Yep. So we will first vote on the amendment. So those in favor of that amendment would vote yes, and those opposed would vote. So you can vote at this time.
We're voting on the amendment?
We're voting on the amendment. Okay.
5 yes, 10 no.
Okay. Amendment fails. Now we go back to the original motion. Are you ready? Yep. Okay, then if you support the 21, you would vote yes. If you do not, then you would vote no. Yep.
12 yes, 3 no.
Okay. Motion passes. Okay. Resolution 3121.
Resolution number 31-21, resolution to establish health insurance funding for the 2022 budget. Now therefore be it resolved that effective January 1, 2022, the total cost and employer contribution amounts for the county's health program plans for all full-time employees and COBRA qualified beneficiaries shall be equal to no more than an overall increase of $279,021 to the 2022 health insurance budget compared to the 2021 budget based on the currently approved staffing detailed in the benefit estimate reports provided to the department heads on June 4th, 2021. And be it further resolved that the county administrator is authorized to make changes to the plan design and employee contribution amounts to ensure that the employer cost does not increase more than $279,021 over the 2021 health insurance budget based on the currently approved staffing detailed in the benefit estimate reports provided to the department heads on June 4th, 2021. And be it further resolved that the county administrator shall bring a resolution to the October 12th, 2021 county board meeting with actual employee premium recommendations, actual plan design recommendations, and estimated total cost for the health insurance plan. And be it further resolved that by no later than December 14th, 2021, the county administrator will provide a report to the county board that provides the actual total cost, if different from the October resolution, for the county's health program plans for the 2022 budget year for all full-time employees and COBRA qualified beneficiaries. And be it further resolved that all full-time employees and COBRA qualified beneficiaries will receive annual HRA funding in the amount of $600 per person, up to 4 maximum, or $2,400 per family. And be it further resolved that all full-time public safety employees represented by the WPPA collective bargaining agreement will receive the same plan design as all full-time employees and COBRA qualified beneficiaries and will receive annual HRA funding in the amount of $600 per person, up to 4 maximum, or $2,400 per family. And the premium contribution rates are as set out in the 2020 to 2022 WPPA collective bargaining agreement. And be it further resolved that HRA funds shall be prorated due to the mid-year elections, qualifying events, or termination without COBRA continuation with distributions on a quarterly basis. And be it further resolved that the monthly retiree contribution amounts for the county's health program plan for retirees new to the plan on and after January 1, 2015 will be calculated once final costs have been determined and reported to the county board no later than December 14th, 2021, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Thank you, Chair. So this is similar to what we do with our across-the-board wage increases. And you'll see that soon. We recommend 0 to 3%. So this is showing the maximum amount that we'll need in our budget to have a 3% increase for the health insurance. It will not matter if we go self-funded or if we go fully funded. We're still going to have to stay within those parameters. The goal is to keep it exactly as is stated in this resolution. We did meet with our broker, our benefits broker, Hayes, last week, and it looks really good that we should be able to do that. And then the next resolution, Tony's actually going to give a presentation about self-funded and kind of explain that more. But this is really just approving what we can maximum put in the budget for health insurance.
Okay. Questions? Okay. Hearing none, then we will call the vote. Secretary?
15 yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Number 5, Resolution 3221.
Resolution number 32-21, resolution to transition from a fully funded health insurance plan to a self-funded health insurance plan commencing in 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that effective January 1, 2022, Chippewa County's health insurance plan will transition from a fully insured health insurance plan to a self-funded health insurance plan. And be it further resolved, the county administrator is authorized to make changes to the plan design and employee contribution amounts to ensure the employer cost increases no more than $279,021 over the 2021 health insurance budget based on the currently approved staffing detailed in the benefit estimate reports provided to the department heads on June 4th, 2021. And be it further resolved that the county administrator will bring a resolution to the October 12th, 2021 county board meeting with actual employee premium recommendations, actual plan design recommendations, and estimated total cost for the health insurance plan. Be it further resolved that by no later than December 14th, 2021, the county administrator will provide a report to the county board that provides the actual total cost for the county's health program plans if it is different than the information provided to the county board during their October 12th, 2021 county board meeting, beginning January 1, 2022, for all full-time employees and COBRA qualified beneficiaries, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 3221.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Supervisor Ives.
Thank you. A minute of Tony come up and do the presentation, but as I talked about, the numbers look good from our consultant. I've been dealing with self-funded. I was self-funded from my previous position and did everything for health insurance, and I did that for 7 years. Tony has even more experience in this field. It does take some more administrative work. That's the memo I put out to you about the position and increasing that, but we feel that in the long run, this is going to be a cost saving to be able to do that. So Tony will come up and do the presentation, and we'll try and answer any questions yet.
Okay. All yours, Tony.
All right, good evening. We have a PowerPoint here. I'm going to take you through some slides and hopefully answer any questions you have. Like Randy said, I've had lots of experience with moving and transitioning back and forth between these two models, so hopefully we can get all your questions answered tonight. The first slide in the PowerPoint is really just an illustration of what our current plan design is. That was in the resolution. We are fully insured. Our provider's Security Health Plan, we've been with them. I've been with the county 6 years. I believe we started with them 2 or 3 years before I came to the county, so we've been with them for several years. The current deductible is $2,000 for an individual on the plan, up to $4,000 for a family member, for a family. The out-of-pocket maximum is $5,000 for an individual, up to $10,000 for a family. We do offer a health reimbursement account that is for $600 per person up to $2,400. So what that would mean is that's a family member or family size of 5 or more, obviously would be capped at that $2,400 amount per year. The network is a very inclusive network for our area. So it has Mayo, Marshfield, Oakleaf, Purveya, St. Joe's. It has a lot of providers within it. So our goal, even if we transition to self-funded, would be to have a very similar plan design and a similar network. The next slide is really what Hayes, which is our broker, they have recommended that we start to transition to self-funding. So it's really just more of a statement that they're on behind this. This PowerPoint slide has been in our countywide PowerPoints as we've tried to explain the difference between self-funded and fully insured for the last couple of years. It's a slide that Hayes has put in to illustrate it to us in the Department of Administration. And so I put it in here to kind of pass that same information on to you. You can see on the left side for fully insured, there's some additional costs that aren't part of being self-funded, which is called term lag, which is their estimates on trying to estimate the claims and just the different lag that occurs, risk margin, and then taxes. When you're self-funded, you don't have those same taxes because of the laws and the regulations that are tied to fully insured health insurance plans. So just strictly from moving without looking at all the other costs, there's an opportunity to save between 8 and 12% just by making that shift. This slide, we updated since the last time I brought this to the executive committee. Supervisor Hull asked some really good questions, and so we wanted to make sure that we had really good answers for him. This slide used to, after the difference column, where it's showing the difference between the actual premiums that were paid in each of those years and the actual medical claims, that's the difference between those two. And so what we used to have is two columns that read estimated stop loss and transplant carve-out premiums, and then we had an estimated administrative fee. And in the estimated administrative fee, it was a $10,000 amount. Chuck had asked several questions about that. Looks small. And I kind of agreed, and I just didn't have, so we went back to our broker and we had another conversation because we had talked about it originally with that information. But what he basically explained is the reason he was comfortable with the column that said $10,000 for administrative costs is because essentially we could have two columns up here. We could have a lot of columns because there's going to be a lot of variables related to self-funding. But what he thinks it's actually going to be is zero. So the administrative cost could be approximately $120,000 to $140,000 annually, but we're going to get a prescription rebates that he thinks is going to offset the administrative cost. So the reason he was okay with me leaving $10,000 in that previous slide and why he didn't ask me to remove that was because he felt like that was a conservative amount, because maybe we don't get as many rebates as we thought. But essentially what he asked me to do was remove it because it's going to be a wash. We're going to get rebates that currently the fully insured carrier is getting from all of the prescription companies. Those will be ours now because we're self-funded. And it will actually make the administrative fees be a wash. So that's why it's a zero. The other thing he asked me to do is the column where it says $45,000 at the executive committee meeting had $100,000 because that was our estimate for stop loss insurance and the transplant carve out. But what he also explained is those stop loss fees are already built into the actual premiums for security health plans. So we were actually double counting that. So he asked me to remove the $100,000 that we estimated and put $45,000. Additionally, he asked us to put the loss ratio. So what he also explained, which we kind of know, is that when you're fully insured, a fully insured carrier, so Security Health Plan's goal is for us to have a loss ratio of 80% or less because they want to make money. They need to build a profit. And so that 80% has profit and it has several other factors. Ultimately, break even is closer to that 100%. So you can see our loss ratio was very low those first few years, which is why that difference is there. And so essentially we could have saved, had we been self-insured all along, we could have saved those dollar values there on the far right. Hindsight's obviously 2020. We don't have those dollars, but that's what we could have saved had we been self-funded. So that's what this slide is illustrating. All right, so the next couple slides were also provided by Hayes, and it's just a good way to look at the advantages and disadvantages of both fully insured and self-funded. Obviously, we're proposing self-funded, so we feel that there's a lot of advantages, but there's advantages to both. The advantages of being fully insured are, as they're listed, it's a level premium, regardless of poor claims history. It's easy to switch carriers because as reserves are included in the premiums paid. So you can kind of switch. You don't have year-end or carryover kind of fees, and so it makes it a lot easier. Easy to budget on an annual basis because it's just a premium cost that we have to worry about. And administration usually is more simplified. Disadvantages. So just like the top where it says level premiums, regardless of, now this time it's good claims. So we couldn't reap the rewards of those good years. Subject to state mandates, which may make the plan more expensive. It's those taxes as well. Multi-state employers have different plan designs by state. That's obviously not related to us. Bundled, thus unable to interchange broken parts. So what that means is it's kind of like you're buying one-stop shop of a benefit package, and it's based on what the Security Health Plan offers. They'll let us change copay amounts. They'll let us change different things, but when it comes to what the plan design is, it's usually very much a plan design that we can't pick and choose and move different procedures around or different carrier amounts around. Must pay premium taxes and margin on top of the administrative and claims expenses. And then the last one on there that I can't see is less plan design flexibility. The advantages for self-insured. So we're able to unbundle and seek the least expensive, best service for each component, network, or administration. We can have uniform plan designs nationally if we were to expand. Better cash flow as a hold on reserves. No margins or premium taxes. It's able to take advantage of good experience within the plan year. More plan design flexibility and access to claims data. So those last two with plan design flexibility, also when you look at the very first one, the bundling, some of the things that we could do is if there is, for example, colonoscopies at Mayo Clinic might cost X amount of dollars. Or through any of our providers within this area. But maybe we discover that there's a very high quality, low cost provider that can provide colonoscopies. We could actually create a plan design that steers employees, but still having choice to those providers to save themselves money as well as the plan money. So those are creative things we can't do with a fully insured plan. Other things that will have access to claims data. Right now we get very little data, so it doesn't really help us with our wellness initiatives because we don't really see some of that claims data. Our goal would obviously still be to protect our employees' anonymity, but just getting more data will be really helpful if you go self-funded. Some disadvantages. Claims may exceed expected level in a poor experience year. The goal would be to have a fund balance, though, so that we can offset those bad years. It could be more cumbersome to switch administrators due to the claims run out. Employers ultimately the final say. And so this one I actually forgot about till we had this presentation because what will happen is if there is an appeal by an employee on how a claim is processed, it'll put the county in a situation where now the administrator will have to make those decisions. So that is one of the disadvantages when you're self-funded. Similar to work comp. So there's lots of decisions we have to make as a county that maybe if we had that fully insured, we wouldn't have to make. Those two slides, like I said, were provided to us by Hayes. They were literally screenshots that we pulled into this presentation. Prior to doing that and having that presentation, these were some of the top 7 that our division had put together. And a lot of them are duplicates. So greater flexibility and control, again, in that plan design. Data transparency, again, having a lot better claims data to be able to make better decisions. Incentives. So that we heard a lot in our surveys. Employees want to have better incentives. They want to have better wellness opportunities. And this going self-funded is going to help us get there and do those things. You saw some slides that obviously illustrate the potential cost savings that we can see and increase control over the risk by purchasing stop loss. I have a slide coming up here that's going to explain what stop loss insurance is. It is less regulated, so we're going to be able to make some decisions on what's covered and what's not, that if we have fully insured, we just have to follow the regulated, what we have to provide. This really did come into play over COVID because during COVID, there were some things that happened that all fully insured plans had to cover. We probably would have made some of those same decisions as a self-insured provider, but you have flexibility to make those calls when you're self-funded. And then the last one is just, again, the same thing, more plan design and clinical outreach options. One thing I didn't talk about yet is on-site clinics, but we're going to talk about that in the future slide. I gave an example of a direct contract when I explained the colonoscopies. And then there's a lot of pharmacy benefit plan design things that we're going to do. We're actually going to be meeting next week to start, I think it's next week or maybe it's the week after, to start the plan design or the pharmacy strategy meetings. The human resources team, finance team, Randy and Tracy as well. So we're going to be able to see some savings there as well. All right, the next 2 slides are some definitions. Stop loss insurance. So we're saying we're going to go to fully insured to self-funded, but we are partially insured. So we're not fully self-funded because we're going to have a stop loss insurance policy. And we're also being recommended by Hayes, so we don't have the numbers yet, to also have a carve-out insurance for transplants. So that instead of having our fully self-funded plan exposed to a transplant issue or some of these large claims, we'll have some insurance that protects us. And so it's also called, sometimes you'll hear the term excess insurance or reinsurance, and it provides some protection. And so there's 2 different types of stop loss. There's specific, which is a form of coverage that provides protection on high-cost claims for any one individual, so there'll be a number. And then there's also something called aggregate. So it's a form of coverage that provides protection or replaces a ceiling, kind of like a deductible on our plan. And then another opportunity that prior to me starting, I had heard Connie Goss used to work for Chippewa County, and it started to have some conversations with the Chippewa Falls School District. It ended up not moving forward, but probably in the last, I want to say it was about 4 or 5 years ago, it was after I started with the county, Chippewa Falls School District did decide to move forward with an on-site clinic. So at their school, they actually work with an organization that offers some types of care on-site. And they've had some great success. I have a good relationship with the HR director there, so I've been able to ask a lot of questions. There is some opportunities for some partnering if that's something that you'd like to do. We've had a lot of conversations about on-site and near-site clinics with our broker. All of this is not something that you normally will see happen in a fully insured plan because it costs too much, because there'll be costs associated with this, but you strategize how to do that so that you save your plan cost money and you can afford it. You can't afford it when you're fully insured and have that premium and offer this kind of a benefit to employees. So this is an opportunity, probably is something that we'll start to talk about if we move to self-insured next year for the following year, if possible. So why the delay? So the resolution was kind of read weird, and I know it's been hard. We've tried to make it as clear as possible. Basically, here's our timeline and why it reads the way it does. Hayes and our DOA team met, like Randy said, a couple weeks ago to talk about the third-party administrator. If we were to go self-funded, we had them come and give some presentations to us. We'll continue to meet with them in the next couple weeks to talk about the prescription strategy. In September, Hayes will have some final recommendations on what those administrative fees and what the prescription costs are going to be. And then they'll also have some preliminary stop loss and all the different carve out, and they'll be able to help us by the end of September come up with some estimated premiums. So that's when Randy's going to be bringing another resolution that's going to have what we believe is the insurance premiums. It's what we're going to announce to the employees as their contribution. The thing that's delayed the most, which is why we have this December item in the resolution, is in October and November. That's when the stop loss actual premiums will be solidified. He feels, our broker feels that he's going to have a really good estimate and that it won't waver too much. But if it does, it's possible, then we would have to obviously have that discussion. But we believe that we'll be able to maintain whatever premiums we come up with in September for open enrollment. So that's the reason for that. So summary, when you're fully insured, the county's cost is equal to the insurance provider's premium that is set regardless of your claims. So they build in term lag, risk margin, and taxes, like you saw on that slide. When you're self-funded, the county's cost includes stop loss insurance premium, administrative fees, and the medical claims paid. Several of the benefits presented previously can only be added if the county moves to a self-funded health insurance plan due to the plan design restrictions by the insurance carrier. During the 2019 meetings, so we moved brokers in 2019. We went through a lot of different meetings. All of them said that we should be moving to self-funded, and it wasn't because they looked at our claims data or dug into our data. It was strictly because of our employee size and that they understand that the benefits that we could see as a county. And so the recommendation by both Hayes and the county administrator is to move forward with the process to make this effective January 1. Any questions about self-funding?
Any questions? Okay. Oh.
Don, hit the button. I'll next.
Hey, go ahead, Don.
I had my hand up.
We'll get used to those words pretty soon.
Yeah, I have a list of questions, but I'll approach the one that might be most important. Is has there been any input from employees? Because benefits such as these have typically been negotiated, and other than the police, they're not any longer. But do the employees have any input into the concept at this stage?
So the last two open enrollment meetings, we built in self-funding parts of the discussion. We put that into the slide. We've opened it up for questions. We tried to explain it. Obviously, this last year, it was via video because of COVID. But the previous year, it was in our meetings. And I went with Alex, who was our HR generalist that explained it along with the broker. And we didn't get a lot of questions. I think you guys would probably agree it's kind of confusing, but they're going to see and feel from a plan, it's going to be essentially the same thing as our goal. It's just the funding mechanism behind it. So I have went out into, I think highway was another opportunity when we talked about benefits, and one of the employees asked the question, one of the shop talks, but it wasn't in a negative way. It was just asking for more information from the county on why we changed from full or self-funded to fully insured prior to me being here. I couldn't explain it fully, but.
Supervisor Steele.
Okay. If we vote yes now, are we saying we're going to go forward with this?
Yes.
Or do we have to have another vote after we get all the figures together? We don't have any figures together.
Right. So you're voting on self-funded today. The October resolution will just be on the premiums.
Well, what happens if we turn October down, but we voted yes today?
I have a concern about that as well.
Well,
So Randy's going to come up and tell you.
well, I mean, we're either voting for it,
Yeah, this would be a vote to go to self-funded. When we bring we'll have rationales for why we have what the cost is going to be. We don't anticipate the cost being any higher, and we cannot go higher than what you already voted on, which is the $279,000. Was that the number? So we can't go higher than that. It's just a matter of if you're going to be self-funded or fully funded. So the premiums aren't going to fluctuate a whole lot either way. So you're going to have to approve the premiums if we're self-funded or fully funded. So I understand you think the numbers really matter, and they do, but maximum of our allowable increase in the budget is the $279,000. But it ain't going to matter if you're fully funded or self-funded. So either way, we're going to have that. That's the anticipated expenditure. This self-funded with everything that we've talked about is, in my opinion, by far a better way to do health insurance than being fully funded. Got a lot more opportunities to save money, which we all like.
Charlene?
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned about the stop loss insurance premiums. That says it's on the county's shoulder.
Correct.
Is there going to be a limit, a maximum?
So stop loss is, we talk with our consultant, but typically it's 100,000 and a size of our, with the many employees as we have. So anything above 100,000, then the reinsurance would kick in. So we'll have conversations with Hayes, but we'll know what that premium cost is before we'll be really close. So when they say they can't completely lock in, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, they're within dollars of what the premium cost is. So when we come back and do the second resolution, it's going to be really close I haven't seen that fluctuate more than $10. So
You mentioned the budget that we have set.
Yep. We'll have to
We're
include
not going to be exceeding that. There's no way that we could exceed that over the budget that we're allowed.
That's correct. Yep. So if for some reason, the premiums are a lot higher, we'd have to do a plan design. We'd have to change something in our plan design.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And we'd have to do that either way.
You push your button.
I just want a clarification on this remark.
Sure.
You said 100,000 per occurrence per
person.
Per person.
Or, yeah.
This is specific is what he's referring to.
Yeah.
I know we're getting used to the buttons, but if you're going to speak, you need to push the button.
Yeah, stop loss is per person. So if, let's say they have a really bad, something really bad, above that 100,000, then the reinsurance will kick in. And again, that number can fluctuate. I've seen it as low as 80, as high as 150. It's really risk tolerance at that point, what your fund balance looks like, what the county wants to take on for that amount. They'll also look at, they got actuaries doing all this, so they'll look at past claims, current claims, and anticipated future claims, and then make that determination. It's more complicated, there's no doubt about it, but like I said, my opinion is it's definitely a cost savings. Because you're going to pay I guess just to kind of ramble on a little bit, you're going to pay the claims no matter what. I mean, if you have a good year, even if you're fully insured, if you have a bad year and your claim history is above 100%, next year when you try to get insurance, you're going to pay that. So that doesn't, none of that changes. You're going to pay what your claim histories are, so you can't get around that.
We had those years of really low loss ratio. We asked and should have essentially gotten a reduction in our premiums, but of course, the full insured carrier is not going to do that. In the last several years, even though we were under that 100%, they were giving us 14% increases. They're giving us a 5.6 right now. Well, now what they're saying, because they know we're going to go to self-funded, we're probably going to get a reduction for the first time in 6 years that we should have had this very long. So they know they want us fully insured because they make money. And so it's the game that we knew would happen. And our broker said, expect this to happen, but hold strong and move to self-funding because then we can reap those benefits versus security health.
And Security Health Plan was one of the TPAs we looked at, and they're self-insured. Insurance company that we're fully insured for, they're self-insured. So I think that says everything I need to know.
Okay, Supervisor Steele.
Yeah, we can't just go to self-funded and collect the premiums the first of the month and say, oh, nobody gets sick. How much do we have to put in the fund to kick it off?
Yeah, so I've been doing that for the last 3 years, been reporting that to the board. We have about 1.5 million in there. We'll have what's called, I always use run out. But so for the first few months, those claims will be on the fully insured plan. So we'll also not have that expenditure for the first few months to help build that fund balance. So we're in a good spot financially for that.
Okay, Supervisor Hauser.
Will the county have all of the same responsibilities that the insurance company has as far as standards and claims? So who do they report to? Like an insurance regulator?
A TPA. So we have what's the
third-party administrator?
Thank you. Third-party administrator essentially is taken over as the insurer, as the fully insured administrator. They're just doing their plan. Now we have a third party that will be doing the same thing. Yeah, we got to follow all those kind of laws. It's just the affordable or ADA or ACA, thanks. ACA, it's been a while. ACA, when that was initiated, they had costs, taxes, they called it, for fully insured plans that weren't in self-insured plans. So that's really the only thing we don't have to follow, but we got to follow, we got HIPAA compliance and all that's all the same.
Supervisor Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one concern I just had was just making sure it's the same look and feel that our employees are going to have, that they're not going to have any benefits taken away from them or fewer benefits, or it's all going to be basically the same but with additional benefits?
Well, the goal is that, yeah. So the goal, and I've, like I said, I have a long history of this. When I talked about this all the time in my previous position, I said the health insurance isn't getting cheaper. So the only way to keep this plan is we got to get healthier, right? So some of the wellness stuff, some of the on-site, near-site stuff that can save us money, the RX, there was things that the broker told us that I wasn't even aware about, the discounts that we can get, that we'll get directly instead of the insurer getting. All of that's going to help reduce the cost, which is going to help us keep our plan design where it is. And hopefully, in the future, health insurance is going up. There's no way about it. So we have to come up with ways to be healthier and ways to reduce that inflation number for the health insurance so we can keep the same plan. Yep, that's definitely the goal.
There's also, if we change, so right now our fully insured carriers security health plan, the security health plan also pitched a third-party administrator and a quote what they would provide. If we don't stay with them, which I have a feeling we're not going to, because from a provider, they're more only a Marshfield Clinic provider. We would actually be more advantageous to go to something that has a lot of Mayo, because we have a lot of Mayo users. We will lose two benefits that the employees currently have, which is something called Care My Way. It's more of a telehealth, but I'm assuming we'll be able to build in another type of product like that, like a telehealth feature. So just to be more transparent, that's for sure. And then another thing that's new, which is kind of a bummer, is we have an over-the-counter thing that employees now can get $30 worth of over-the-counter, Band-Aids, what else do we have all stacked up in our cabinets right now? And so it's $30 every quarter. that won't be available. But there hopefully, like you said, will be other things that we can kind of explain, because that's our goal. We don't want to at all take away benefits. We're hoping to make it look like it's something better, definitely. But those are the only two things I can think of right now.
Yeah, and like I, said since I got here, recruit and retention, it's huge and it's bigger now than it's ever been. So we always want to try and be, the best employer we can be, and benefits is huge. Explaining and showing the employees the benefit of our health insurance is something we've talked a lot about, because it really is, it's dollars, to their pay that it's sometimes not aware of. So we've been talking about that, a good way to educate and show that too to them.
Okay. Seeing any marks on the board? We will call the vote.
Yes, 1 no.
Okay. Ready? Resolution 3321.
Resolution number 33-21, resolution to approve levy for salary adjustments in 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that $175,000 of levy funding is hereby approved to be included in the 2022 proposed county budget to be used to cover the cost of across-the-board wage adjustments commencing on July 1, 2022, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Chair. This is something you approve every year. We put in a 0 to 3% increase for across-the-board wage increases. The maximum is $175,000 on the levy. Currently in the budget, that's what we had all our departments put into the budget, so that's what we're working with, and it's something you guys pass every year.
Any questions? Hearing none, we will call the vote. Yes.
15 yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Okay, resolution 3421.
Resolution number 34-21, resolution to create a technical support analyst position in the Information Technology Division of the Department of Administration. Now therefore be it resolved that effective January 1, 2022, one full-time technical support analyst position is hereby created in the Information Technology Division of the Department of Administration to provide technical support and equipment deployment to all Chippewa County employees. Be it further resolved that this position shall be funded using county tax levy, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Go ahead.
I'll speak on this real quick. Andy's going to talk on this one and then the next one too. If you remember last year during the budget process, this is what I talked about, because it's difficult to put this much levy into any single department. So we put in money last year, which we had into their contracted services. And Andy was actually able to utilize that to hire 2 LTEs, I believe. And as you can imagine what this year was like, I'm sure he's very thankful for that and kind of lucky that we actually did that. So I'll let him speak on the rest.
Okay.
Good evening. So just to start with a little bit of history, I gave this little history to the executive committee. I started back in 2007, and as you can imagine, over the last almost 14 years, the technology landscape has really changed. Back then, we had about 25 servers. We didn't maintain the phone system in the IT division. There was no wireless throughout the county. We had a single data center, no mobile data computers in the squad cars, no iPads for the county board members, and the list continues for the things that we didn't have back then. We've continued to evolve as time has went on, and the needs of the departments have evolved. We now have about 125 servers. We have redundant data centers down at the city of Eau Claire for redundancy because of all of the 24/7 operations that we support. We have, I think, in the ballpark of about 90 wireless access points. We maintain the phone system, and the list continues to grow every year as projects are added to support the departments. Looking at our support that we do for each of the departments, in 2019, we had about 3,500 tickets that we closed out for things that we're needing help with. So that's simple things like password resets. It can be error messages within applications, hardware failures. So the amount of time really varies from time to time as far as how much time it takes to complete. In 2020, that number with COVID really skyrocketed. We were up at about 4,653 tickets, so a huge increase. And I expected as we looked at the first half of this year that, okay, that number maybe would have leveled out a little bit and was a little bit lower. Through the first 6 months, we were actually at 2,655 tickets. So we were on pace for about 5,300 tickets this year. So as the load on the department has increased, our staffing hasn't really increased a lot. When I started, we had, it was 4 technical staff and the director. Today we have 5 full-time technical in the internal IT and the director position. And then you guys also had approved an RWC position that does nothing but the human services software last year. It really has forced us to get more efficient as how we do our jobs. So we have documented processes. So when there's turnover, things are a little bit smoother. We've gotten more efficient at how we push things out, whether it's deploying software patches, deploying new applications, the process for deploying new hardware and things like that. We've really gotten more efficient at. One other big thing that we had added that I didn't mention before is we didn't maintain the camera system. At this point, we have almost 240 cameras in our camera system. That's the jail, that's the courthouse buildings, other areas that are outside of the courthouse, the city of Chippewa Falls we also support, so continues to grow. So this year, as Randy said, we had the privilege of having 2 limited term staff on board for about 19 hours a week each. That was a huge help to our department. The normal amount of tickets that we had opened prior to this year was pushing that 100 tickets at any given time that were open that people were waiting for support. As of the beginning of this week, we were down to about 50. And we also have been furthest along in our PC deployment that we've ever been. Typically, it's the end of the year, October, November, and it's like, oh, shoot, we have a lot of computers still to deploy. And we really have to put projects on hold to try to get those PCs deployed so people have the tools that they need to complete their tasks. As of today, we are almost completely done with that replacement process. So we are way ahead of schedule, which then helps our other project staff complete the other projects that they're working on. And we've seen a lot of traction in those projects the last couple months here. So that is kind of the history, kind of where we're at, where we've been, where we're at, and kind of our goal with adding this person as another full-time person is to continue that momentum going forward.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. Yep.
14 yes, 1 no.
Okay, and then we will look at Resolution 3521.
Resolution number 35-21, resolution to create a technical support analyst position in the Information Technology Division of the Department of Administration to provide technical assistance to the Recovery Wellness Consortium. Now, therefore, be it resolved that effective January 1, 2022, one information technology program analyst position is hereby created to provide technical support to the Recovery and Wellness Consortium of the Department of Human Services to rebuild and provide ongoing maintenance for the electronic health record system to reduce inefficiencies and minimize Medicaid audit financial payback risk. And be it further resolved that this position shall be funded by using the Medicaid revenue generated by the Comprehensive Community Services Program and existing funding within the Buffalo, Pepin, and Chippewa County Human Services Departments. And be it further resolved that should the state and federal funding necessary to fund this position no longer be available or be reduced significantly, this position may be eliminated by the county administrator through the budget process, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. You're on the floor, Andy.
Thank you. So the electronic health record system that we have in our Human Services Department is called NetSmart Avatar. This program was implemented quite a few years ago, and during the initial process of implementing that program, they recommended 1 to 2 people to maintain that system. It's a very comprehensive system, very similar to like a public safety system like Spillman that we have. So there's a lot that goes into maintaining it, updating it, keeping it where it needs to be and functional for the department. Last year, in 2019, as we were going through the process to try to get that program back up to speed to where it should be, because there was never dedicated staff assigned to work on that, 2 positions were requested. But during the process of the discussions, it was determined the best approach would be to start with 1 position, to evaluate kind of the progress we could make with 1 position and see if 2 people were actually needed, rather than getting 2 positions and finding out we had more people than we actually needed for that. As we've worked through this process in January of 2020, we were able to hire a full-time person as a system analyst for that system. We were very fortunate that the person that we hired actually came from another county that utilized that system, and that person had all the training that was necessary and was able to really hit the ground running. It eliminated about a 6 to 12 month training process that normally would have taken place. So we were able to really quickly see the benefits with the changes that were able to be put in place. The RWC consortium continues to grow with the number of consumers that it serves. And with that, NetSmart has monthly updates that they would like to have installed. These are security updates, bug fixes, patches, and new features that go into the system. Our current person has really dealt with a lot of the break fix and day-to-day stuff, more of the help desk type tasks, and hasn't really been able to focus as much on the redesign of the system, which would provide some of those efficiencies for the departments. They wouldn't have to do dual data entry as they enter a consumer's information on one screen. It could carry on to the next screens rather than doing multiple entries. Also, by not having that efficiencies built in, it also increases the chance for errors where you could have typos or misinformation as you go from screen to screen. So with this position, we would really focus on this position doing those day-to-day activities. Right now, we have about 160 avatar users, so there's a lot of new user creation, decommissioning of users as they leave the systems, any security changes that go along with that. We also have about 500 SharePoint users. So this is the system that they use for uploading their information from all the outside providers and the outside counties. There's a lot of time that goes into creating the sites and maintaining the sites, who has access and those types of things. We did implement a help desk system for this process as well to start to gather some of the data about how much work is being put into the day-to-day stuff. The last 4 months have been as follows. So in April, we had 83 tickets. That was the first month we started recording. May, 195 tickets. June, 121. In July, 122. So we're really looking at probably around that 120 tickets alone for just the break fix things. By allowing this new position to focus on those break fix things, it's really going to then, like I said, focus for the system analysts to do the upgrades and the redesign processes.
Okay. Any questions? Supervisor Thornton.
The Recovery and Wellness Consortium is under the oversight of the Health and Human Services Committee. And being as how we've had all these conversations lately about committees and resolutions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I serve on that committee. I don't recall any discussion by our committee regarding this issue, number one. And why is it being brought forward by the executive committee and not the Health and Human Services committee?
No, that's a good question. This is part of the budget process. So new positions are brought through executive committee. That's the way it's always been done.
I think other positions that have been brought on board through Health and Human Services come there first, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, they could have been mid-year requests. Then they wouldn't go through the budget process.
Quick question before you leave. The funding mechanisms that you talked about with this consortium that House Secure are those funding mechanisms?
It's Medicare, so.
Medicare but the.
You tell us.
It really doesn't give me a lot of confidence. Okay.
It's all Medicare funded. That whole program is.
Okay.
Millions and millions of dollars. So.
Okay, both portions of that are Medicare funded?
It's all Medicare funded.
All Medicare?
All CCS is Medicare funded, yep.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions? Supervisor Ives.
It was just clarifying. County administrator said Medicare, and this says Medicaid. I know
I'm
there's
sorry.
different.
I always get this mixed up.
Okay.
That's probably my fault.
Medicaid.
Okay.
Hasn't done anything for my comments.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay. Supervisor Hauser.
Eventually. Will this position have any impact on the other parts of the service? Will it do anything beyond the Medicare or Medicaid services?
This position is strictly funded by that, so we can't use them for other services, only things that would classify as that.
Will it relieve some of the work that your department is currently doing?
No, it's strictly the stuff that is being done for the NetSmart Avatar. Like this position doesn't do PC replacement. Those things are still covered by our internal IT.
But who's been doing it so far?
The PC deployment side of thing, that's our internal staff that we have of 5 people.
Any other questions? Hearing none, then we will call the vote. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Yep.
14 yes, 1 no.
Okay. Ordinance 03-21. First reading. This be the first reading.
Okay. So Dan Masterpole, our Land Conservation Forest Management Director, will have a presentation about this.
I think it's the wrong presentation.
Good evening, everyone. This is the first reading of a revised animal waste ordinance that's now titled the...
Wrong file.
That's the wrong one. The stormwater.
I'll let Tracy go ahead and get organized. This is the first reading of a proposed ordinance to revise our existing animal waste storage ordinance. And we thought it would be appropriate to provide an explanation at the first reading in the event that you have any questions tonight or between the second reading. So this PowerPoint presentation is about the same one that the committee used at the public hearing, but it serves to kind of give a good overview of the revision. So in Chippewa County, ag operations and ongoing production of food, fuel, and fiber are essential to our county's economy and to the well-being of our residents. This ordinance has been developed to promote the public, to promote the ag industries, to provide them a reasonable operating environment, to prevent pollution of surface and groundwater, and to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. This map is an air photo of the county, and in the light green, it shows the locations of farms in the county that now have nutrient management plans, where they're systematically managing their crop production, using soil tests and fertilizer management and manure management strategies. There are yellow dots here that show the location of farms over the last 20 years that have put in manure storage structures, and they're associated with these nutrient management plans. And then the other thing you can see in blue are surface waters, and in red are the areas of high nitrate concentrations that have been determined from some of our recent groundwater testing through the university. This ordinance was put together over the last 3 years with input from the public and stakeholders. And the committee worked through a number of working drafts, and in the end landed on two trigger mechanisms that would facilitate a permit. One is whether there were new expanding operations involving storage, and secondly, whether there was actually a public complaint that was rendered against any cropping or livestock operation. In both of those scenarios, the state law requires and defines circumstances when public cost share must be provided. And the committee did explore a number of other avenues to use as a trigger mechanism for invoking the ordinance, and went through both agency and external counsel review, and ended up honing the ordinance back down to be defensible. Importantly, though, I think it was developed with input from the agricultural industry and stakeholders, and has received the endorsement of the major farm organizations. So what I'd like to do is just use about 3 or 4 slides here to explain what's really changed from our existing ag ordinance. And there were 3 major areas of change that have a bullet here. Then I have a slide for each of these bullets that explain the why that we made these changes. So the first thing that changed was that we've expanded the scope of the ordinance to apply to all agricultural land and livestock and cropping operations, with the assurance of public cost share funds and technical assistance when required by state law. We added the ag performance standards and associated USDA technical standards as the basis for our local regulation, and incorporated current processes to evaluate and resolve public complaints, and added local enforcement authority, which did not exist before. So with regard to the first change, expanded the scope of the ordinance to apply to all agricultural lands and livestock and cropping operations with the assurance of public cost share money and technical assistance required by law. Well, why did we do that? Principally to conserve the soil and water resource base as needed to sustain a strong economy. So if we're going to have agriculture as a contributing component of our economy, we have to maintain the soil and water resource base. And the agricultural industry knows and understands this and endorses this approach. We also did it to protect and maintain our water quality, both for agricultural use and tourism and rural well consumption, and to assist landowners and operators to plan for a phased-in approach to offset costs. So this ordinance puts everyone on notice that certain minimum performance standards are required, and it's a little bit like setting the speed limit. It puts everybody on notice that a certain level of management is going to be required. We added the state agricultural performance standards and associated USDA technical standards as the basis for local regulation. These are actually listed and referenced in the ordinance. Why did we do that? To define clear base expectations of all operations and to assure a level playing field among the producers operating in a competitive market. So the ag industry itself sees value in having standards that apply across the board to all operations and rural landowners when public cost share is provided if required by law. So what are these standards? All cropland operations need to control soil erosion on all fields and pastures to a level that's been established nationally as the standard for erosion control. It's the rate at which ag production can continue without mining the soil. Secondly, all cropland operations need to develop, implement, and update a nutrient management plan for all cropland fields. And what that means is that they need to take routine soil samples. They need to track and account for the nutrients from both on and off farm sources. That's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And importantly, they need to restrict and limit the nutrients to meet the crop needs using the soil test results. So this is really true management of crop production tying back to nutrient management. And there's a standard that restricts tillage and within 5 feet of a stream channel. These are state standards that have been adopted over the last 20 years. Livestock operations need to control direct runoff to surface and groundwater from feedlots, stored manure, and processed water if they're located adjacent a stream. They need to restrict livestock access to streams to maintain vegetative cover. In other words, the cows have to come out of the creek or they have to be restricted in numbers so we're not beating up the stream banks. And they need to properly design and install and manage the manure storage structures. And this is something that's already in place. We incorporated our current processes to evaluate and resolve public complaints. These have been in effect since 1985, but we wanted to incorporate this into the ordinance. And why? To establish a well-defined and consistent process for farm evaluations, to allow us to phase this in through time, and to assure local control with elected board oversight. The industry felt strongly that they would like to continue to work with DNR, but also wanted to work with the county board to have local control of the regulations. This is a map that shows where some of these ordinances are now being adopted. They started most earnestly in the eastern part of the state, and through time, more and more counties are adopting these ordinances. So around us, a number of counties have adopted a similar ordinance, and our recommendation now is to proceed in Chippewa County. So, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you want me to address questions tonight or next time. How do you want to do this?
This is the first reading, so the committee can have time to digest what they have in their packets, and we'll finish it up a second reading. Supervisor Hauser.
Is there anything ongoing in the next couple of months that would suggest that we should move this forward quicker? Like our public speaker, member of the public who spoke earlier, you probably didn't hear her, but she talked about waiving the first reading.
Yeah. I don't think it's, that's obviously your option. I think the committee's worked on this for almost 4 years now. And to take another month to digest it, I think is appropriate. No.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, purchasing policy, first reading.
I have a lawyer, finance director can speak on this. I'll just say a few words. I do have a request that if you are comfortable with this at this time, if you would waive the second reading and move forward with this. Our facilities director, who has to deal with this every single day, would greatly appreciate it. But if you don't feel comfortable, obviously we'll wait another month.
Okay.
Good evening,
Lori.
everybody. Been sitting back there waiting for my chance to talk to you. So I know this will be pretty quick because it's not too long. So as he had mentioned, this is the first reading of the purchasing policy. So back in 2016, the uniform guidance, those are requirements had changed that specifically govern our federal and state grants and how we can account for our expenses. And so we were required, Chippewa County was required to adopt a purchasing policy back in 2015 in order to comply with their requirements. So back in 2015, we adopted this policy. The requirements were, that any purchases less than $3,000 were called micro purchases. And then those were the requirements. And then without getting those multiple quotes, but if it was over the 3,000, but less than that 150,000, it was required to get 2 quotes at a minimum. With this $3,000 threshold, this has caused additional work for some of our departments to make sure that they're in compliance with this purchasing policy. In 2020, we actually found out that, or I shouldn't say we found it, I found out here in 2021, but in 2020, the uniform guidance had actually changed the amounts to go to this 10,000, because I'm sure they ran into problems with other people. And we would still be considered to be within the uniform guidance requirements, which was confirmed by our auditors. So we would like to update our policy with those new amounts from the 3,000 to the 10,000 in those 2 areas. So it's only on this page 8, those two sections that would be changing. Any questions?
Mr. Schmidt?
I move to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to suspend the second reading. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, then I will call the vote. If you wish to suspend the rules, you'd vote yes. If you do not, you'd vote no. Yep.
14 yes, 1 no.
Alrighty, number 11.
No.
Excuse me.
Go back.
We still got to vote on the original motion.
We have to move to do it first, don't we?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? We will call the vote.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
15.
Okay, passes. Number 11, closed session. Supervisor First, would you?
Okay, I'd make a motion that the county board will convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute Section 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. Confer with attorney on tentative settlement in Jacob R. Voityko versus Chippewa County et al. The closed session will include the following people: all county board supervisors present: Tim Johnson, Deb Blevins, Tracy Bremnes, Jacqueline Sadler, Randy Schultz, and Todd Pauls.
Okay, do we need to close the doors? Yeah.
I'll second.
Motion to go in. Made the motion? Glenn, excuse me, yeah. So Supervisor Hunt made the second. Randy, doors closed. Yep, we will push the button then to go into closed session. We need more items.
Oh, I'm sorry. What am I supposed to push? Oh, vote.
Yep. It's getting late. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
15 yes.
Okay. Agenda items for future consideration. Supervisor Schmidt.
I would ask that the stormwater agreement be put on the next land conservation agenda so that we can get it to the next county board meeting.
Okay. Anything else?
I would ask that the Public Health Department give us an update on the current status of the pandemic.
Anything else? Okay. We've waited for this. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's made and seconded. Adjourn. We will just do a quick voice vote. All in favor signify by saying
Aye.
hallelujah. Don't stand in front of the door because you could get trampled. Thank you all.
You got some extra time on your hands, Gary?
Right on.